Dr. Jason Nolan is the John C. Eaton Chair of Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Associate Professor of Early Childhood Studies at Toronto Metropolitan University, TMU, where Nolan co-directs the Responsive Ecologies Lab. Nolan is autistic and maintains a disability accommodation agreement with TMU. Having just turned 60, Nolan has been thinking about autism and aging for a long time and has some thoughts to share. Nolan's special interests cluster around sound and musicking, learning with materials, and understanding what makes neuro-normative society tick. Nolan's preferred pronouns are none, none.
Le Dr Jason Nolan est titulaire de la John C. Eaton Chair of Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Associate Professor in Early Childhood Studies à Toronto Metropolitan University, TMU, où Nolan codirige le Responsive Ecologies Lab. Nolan est sur le spectre de l'autisme et maintient une entente d'accommodement avec TMU. Nolan, qui vient avoir 60 ans, pense à l'autisme et au vieillissement depuis longtemps et a quelques réflexions à partager. Les intérêts spéciaux de Nolan tournent autour de son et musicking, l'apprentissage avec des matériaux et de la compréhension de ce qui fait vivre une société neuro-normative. Les pronoms préférés de Nolan sont non, none.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk today. My name's Jason Nolan, and my topic is aging autistically. N equals 1. That is one old autistic guy's yammering about things. So, this is what I'm going to be talking about. Why listen to an old guy? Who is this old guy? What's his story? What's in it for you and your family? What are the options when you get old? And what is generalizable and transferable that you can take with you? Well, we hope I can address some of that or most of that. So, as you can imagine, I'm just one old voice among many. There's lots of autistics out there, and I'm just one example. And I'm an old guy who got where I wanted to be. I've thought a lot about living with and around and among neurotypicals. I've researched and written on disability and critical race theory issues. I'm an educator. I work in a sheltered workplace, where I am right now. It's a university. And I think I'm hilarious. I find myself to be really funny, so doesn't mean a lot of other people think that. So, my name's Dr. Jason Nolan, or Professor Jason Nolan. I'm the John C. Eaton Chair in Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I direct the Responsive Ecologies Lab, as you can see in that picture there. I'm Associate Director of the Early Childhood Studies Lab Schools. I'm an Associate Professor of Early Childhood Studies in the Faculty of Community Services at Toronto Metropolitan University. I do research. I'm an academic researcher. I'm part of the Canadian Accessible Musical Instrument Network, where we create custom, or we're starting to, it's a new project, create musical instruments that are suitable for disabled musicians and whatnot. I research tangible and embodied sonic interaction in AR and VR environments. I research learning, communicating, and making sense with sound. I'm making sonic throwable objects. And I explore missing sensory modalities in learning. There's a lot of technical terms, but these are sort of the projects that I'm working on. I teach. I've been teaching for, I don't know how long, 30, 35 years maybe. I teach right now children in play, creative arts around set movement and sound. I've taught STEM learning, all those areas before. And right now I've just started teaching social innovation and entrepreneurship. And there's a nice picture of me in my lab playing with sound. So, I come from a low SES background, poor. I was a latchkey kid, been living most on my own since I was 17. First member of my family to finish a university degree, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. Depends, I'd have to go look that up again. But anyway, first generation of my family to go to university. I'm a self-motivated learner, and I have been since the day I was born, I think. I'm a very slow learner. I was a high school dropout. I got my BA when I was 24 years old, my MA when I was 27, my Bachelor of Education when I was 30, finished my PhD when I was 39, mostly studying English and education. I've taught environmental science, critical thinking, STEM, educational theory, social innovation, creative arts. I do repeat myself in my slides because I never pay enough attention to them when I'm making them. I got my first full-time job when I was 43 years old. I got tenure when I was 51. I got the Eaton chair this year when I turned 60. So much slower trajectory than you'd expect just about anybody, but this might resonate with a lot of you. So I am autistic, I am disabled. I'm not a person with autism or person with a disability. I identify very strongly with being autistic. Part of that means that everything takes 10 times longer for me to do anything. Being autistic, I really made a decision to choose to rule myself rather than be ruled by others. I really like my autonomy in the way I like to do things. And as you can see, I'm always, in my own mind, doing interesting things. I choose autonomy over heteronomy. I chose self-regulation and self-control over other people deciding what I should and shouldn't do, which is what those terms mean. I like to communicate with people indirectly. I'm really happy doing this talk because I don't have to see anybody. I'm just looking at a computer screen and there's a camera on me. And so I like communicating with people indirectly. I like through things, through institutionalized settings. I can teach because the role of a teacher is a thing that I communicate through. I'm not always just being me, I'm being something through something else. Don't like hugs, don't like close proximity. I do eye contact, but I mostly simulate eye contact. Again, he thinks he's hilarious. Yeah, a lot of the things that I do are because I get some curiosity, some interest, some delight out of doing things. And I think that's my job, to find interesting things for me to do, and hopefully make a living doing it. So, how do I make sense of things? I think this is really important. I love this image because it's me protecting myself from the world around me. This is actually a pre-COVID photograph of me working in a machine shop, but I thought it was really suitable. I'm very influenced by people and things. I actually have to be careful that I'm not over-influenced by people and things, and that I don't start doing what they're doing, what they're interested in doing. I have to keep track of what my prize is, what my goals and interests and needs are. I grew up with a lack of expectations. Never thought I'd finish high school. That was my biggest shock. I finished high school. So, wow, if I can finish high school, everything else is possible. But I didn't really have any goals in terms of what I wanted to be when I grew up. I still don't have any goals of what I wanted to be when I grew up. Certainly didn't think I'd ever be a professor. I grew up with a general lack of support and encouragement. I was dumb. I wasn't good in school. I screwed everything up. I failed at jobs. I couldn't get jobs. And that was the expectation. Jason's not going to amount to much. Most people are still shocked that I amounted to anything. But this is a big one. I desired stability, regularity, and continuity. I wanted a nice job where I can make a decent living, and something I wasn't going to lose my job with. So I love the stability of being a tenured professor. So I made detailed observations of the world around me all my life. I can remember back to 1966, when I would have been 4 years old. Was the first age that I really started cluing in and watching the world around me and seeing how people interacted with each other and what was going on. Very observational. So some of you would like that. My touchstone thought, which I developed much later in life, was, what would Jane Austen do? And if you know anything about the early novel, not like Jane Austen's works and similar, they were very social observational novels. And if you read them, you can say, wow, that's how people do things. That makes a lot more sense. They would describe situations, describe problems people would get into. Same with movies. I watch movies to learn about how people think about what they think. So it's sort of a meta-cognitive way of thinking. And through that, I realized one of the biggest issues that was important in running people's lives was that in administration was where things happened. The people who ran the schools, the people who ran the classrooms, the people who ran the corporations, the people who ran institutions are the ones where things got controlled. And if you didn't understand how they worked, you wouldn't understand yourself in relationship to them, and you wouldn't know what to do and how to act. So the combination of understanding administration and understanding sort of Jane Austen's way of looking at the world and describing the world and seeing what trouble people got into through the choices they made were very important for me to understand how I was going to function in the neurotypical world, which otherwise didn't make much sense, still doesn't make much sense to me at all. So, I spelled typo. So think about this. When I'm saying, what about you? That is me, by the way, when I was 2.5, 3 years old. Anyway, I still got those boots. So the driving ideas that worked for me was enjoying work through failure. Everything always screws up for me. I have to do it over and over again until I get it right. For me, identifying what my intrinsic interests are, my real deep interests, identifying my intrinsic goals and intrinsic motivations. These are really worth reflecting on. What's your point and what are you into and what do you really want to do? Not I want to be something. I want to do something. So identifying what the things I want to do and doing them as best I can, doing them with increasing levels of complexity, getting better at things, trying new things that might be fitting in with my intrinsic goals, interests, and motivations. I have a real direct interest in repetition and regularity, and practicing strengths and exploring weaknesses. I'm not always just about being good at what I'm good at, because I'm not really good at a lot of things, but exploring what I'm weak at and seeing if I can improve that. I'm very curious about finding out what I'm not good at as much as what I'm good at. Actually, I'm much more interested in what I'm not good at than at what I am good at. So, what's my autistic superpower? I have one. I am really good at getting really good answers with minimal information. You give me a little bit of information, I can come up with an answer that's probably true most of the time. So that's a real strength that I've got that a lot of people don't have. Now, I may come up with the right answer, but I've still got to go through all the work to find out whether it's right or not. But the idea is that I immediately can assess a situation and know what's going on. I may be wrong, but I can at least do that and then put that aside and continue on. I'm a very lateral thinker. I think this way, not that way. I'm not very deep. I'm not very philosophical. I'm not very reflective. I'm not very imaginative. What I am able to do is connect things laterally. So I can take something in children's music and connect it to educational theory or design practice or anything else. I can always take my knowledge and move it into other areas. I'm naturally transdisciplinary. I'm not interested in the categories of what we're doing. I'm an early childhood studies professor. I do electronic music. I research into electronics, and I'm really curious about engineering and science. So all of those things come together. I'm going across many disciplines all the time. So, like I said, I'm a slow learner. It takes me a decade to get things, but I get it better. So I'm a slow learner, but the learning over time really does help. And I'm saying all this stuff so that you can start thinking about, where are you? A lot of people get a very quick sense of where they are very quickly and then stick with it. They don't challenge it. They don't reflect on it. They don't look in other areas. So I like the idea that I'm chaotically cognitive. I'm not a linear thinker. I don't go from A to B to C to E. I go from A to F to B to Z to 27 in a helicopter. A lot of stuff all over the place. And I'm a very non-visual thinker. If you ever heard of that notion that like if I close my eyes, I can't visualize anything. But I work through narratives that I tell myself, or I work through topologies, landscapes, and stories. So when I'm trying to think, I'm never going to be thinking in an ordered manner, which is why I've got all these really clear notes here, because otherwise I would be going completely off topic in about 27 seconds. And somebody called me a pathfinder once. I see connections between things that other people don't see. And I don't know a lot of people like me, some just one autistic different than everybody's got their own thing going on. But a lot of these things I'm talking about are things that I do not see in my neurotypical colleagues, neurotypical friends, neurotypical family. So these are things that I think are my strengths that a lot of other people really have trouble with. And that's also why a lot of people don't understand me and don't know what I'm going on about, because I'm moving sideways, I'm moving transdisciplinarily, I'm chaotic in my thinking, I'm jumping all over the place, but I do get things done in the end. So I think it's really important for autistics to have their sense of self. What's different between you and me and you and everyone else? Why do your family not understand you? Why do they think they understand you? Why do therapists and things try and fix you? You have to have a sense of yourself and your self-identity, but it's a different sense. It's not going to be one that other people have thought of for you. You have to figure a lot of this out for yourself. I don't trust other people to tell me what's going on. I listen to a lot of different people and take a lot of different sets of ideas, but in the end, I have to get my own sense of identity and self and who I am. I have different emotional senses. I do not get, I get very nervous, very anxious, lots of anxiety, but in a really difficult situation or really emotional, strong situation, I'm very calm, very organized. Right now, I'm in terror. I'm speaking, it's a lecture, it's horrible, it's stressful. But I also learned that I act calm. And I learned that differentiation. So nobody really can usually tell how nervous I am, except I go off topic more when I'm nervous, and I talk really fast when I'm nervous. So yes, I'm calm under extreme pressure or no pressure, but in between I get very anxious under social situations, terrified. When I go to teach, I'm terrified. When I go to a departmental meeting, I'm terrified. When I have to meet students, I'm terrified. It works through, they don't really notice. So I may know more than other people. I do. I can come up with so many different sets of ideas for things. But I've also realized that in order for me to understand myself in the context of the neurotypical and dominant society, I have to know what other people's goals and interests and needs are. Right? If I don't understand other people, how can I understand myself in a relationship to them? How can I advocate for what I want? I have to know what theirs are. And nice thing is, in my job, is I work to help people understand their goals and interests and needs, and then I get to understand theirs as well. And I do this in order to achieve my goals and interests and needs. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Autistics seem to think they're isolated from everybody else sometimes. We aren't. We live within this larger world that is more neurotypical than it is autistic. And if I want to achieve what I want, I have to understand what other people's goals and interests and needs are and help them achieve their goals and interests and needs, while I'm trying to establish mine. Makes me a fairly good educator, I think, because of that, although I'm not a very good educator. Now, this is, again, older autistic thinking about neurotypicality. I like the term neurotypical. A lot of people say, well, it's not a really nice term. Autistic isn't necessarily a nice term either. It's been used very negatively over time, so I don't mind throwing it back and saying the neurotypicals are out there. There's a spectrum. Not everybody's fully neurotypical, not everybody's full-on autistic. But this is me thinking about them, or thinking about some of you. Neurotypicals have an impairment that limits their access to autistic thinking. Being neurotypical is being a lack of autistic. You're not getting the benefits of what's going on that side. Most of us are on a spectrum in between. So what I'm saying is a generalizable statement, an overly generalizable statement, but idea is thinking about it. The more neurotypical you are, the less autistic you are, the less ability you are to access the uniqueness of the autistic thinking. Read books by other autistics. They are weird. There's a lot of different autistic thinking out there that we can be learning from and learning with. Neurotypicals are insensitive to external and physical stimuli. less sensitive than autistics are. That's what I think. These are my opinions. These are not my researched thoughts. Neurotypicals need to understand that their socialization restricts their understanding of the physical world and the logical mathematical relationships built from engaging in the world. I'm more interested in the world than what people do in the world and talk about in the world. For me, it's about things, the relationship between things, and people are just more of these things that we can study. I don't like psychology. I make fun of psychology a lot. I think of, if you ever know about Plato's cave, you can look it up. I think psychologists are in Plato's cave, showing pictures on the wall that people explore and watch these projections on the wall of Plato's cave. Autistics are outside running around. So I'm saying that autistics are outside, psychologists are looking outside things that are out there. Neurotypicals are looking at what psychologists show them. And that's why I have a problem with psychologists. Psychologists are all about neurotypicality. That's their main perspective. You don't have psychologists who are autistic looking at studying neurotypicals very much. I haven't met anybody doing it. There's a few psychologists who are artistic looking at other autistics. Not bad. But I think we're out in a different world that psychologists then study and then present to neurotypicals as a way autistics work and the way the world works from its psychological perspective. I think that's really limiting. And I think psychologists should spend time looking more at themselves and less at other people. But again, these are my opinions. I do have a few friends who are psychologists, so just saying that. These are my non-scientific opinions, but this is stuff that I've come across. And I may have my facts wrong, but these are the things that guide my thinking as an old autistic guy. These aren't truths. These are things that I've decided. So I'm saying autistics are more sensitive to social interactions, not less. That's why we run away from them. Social interactions for me are too much information. There's too much going on. That's why I don't like them. It's not that I'm socially inept. It's that the world isn't designed for autistic sociality. We're less sensitive to social rewards, social interaction, cultural capital, all that stuff is boring. I'm not really interested in being a TikTok star or a Twitter star. I do like saying things on Twitter, but we're not interested in the social rewards of things. We're interested in doing things with things that we are interested in. Can include people, but not necessarily. I think autistic brains age slower. Infants have 15% more neurons than adults. I think that autistic brains have too many neurons and that we don't undergo that synaptic pruning that happens with children as they're growing up, where they, as they say, children can learn anything. But as we get older, it's hard and hard to learn things. I think the autistic brain ages more slowly. I think it prunes more slowly. And if you notice that people with schizophrenia and neurodementia have too few synaptic connections. We have too many synaptic connections. I've read this in the research literature. I don't know whether it's true, but I like this as a guiding metaphor for my thinking. I've read that autistics don't get age-related dementia or schizophrenia, but the literature itself says, some say yes they do, some say no they don't, but again, it's just a question of nature or nurture. Autistics are very abused by neurotypical society in general, so if are they growing up free autistics, like free-range autism, or do they get problems as they grow older because of all the social pressures they have? There's no way to have a study that talks about that. But these are some ideas that are in the back of my head. So the question for the autistics, for me, is do you want to have control over what happens in your life? Or do you want somebody else to make the decision for you? A lot of autistic young adults, children, have been very conditioned by the parents and by therapists in order to help them fit in, to have a good life. They want to, parents and therapists want us to have the best possible life. But at what cost? What do we lose in order to just being fitting in and be able to act fairly neurotypical? It's called heteronomous conditioning. It's conditioning from an outside source that really wants you to behave properly, and that will be good for you. maybe that's not what we should be doing. But we also have to fit in. So how do you find the balance between enough external force to make you help you fit in, and enough you so that you've got something to be? So do you want to have control over what happens in your life? You've then got to finish school, you've got to get a job, you've got to learn how to wear a suit, you've got to do all these things, while at the same time not giving up the part of you that's autistic, that's the real part of you. So don't let the external world rule your life, but if you just did what you want all the time, you're probably going to end up in trouble. Are you content to let others make choices for you? If so, go with it, but think about that. Are you willing to do the work required to be independent? Are you willing to do the work to build the social network you need? Are you willing to do the work to create spaces for you to thrive and you and your special interests to thrive? That's a lot of work and takes a lot of learning, and I spend most of my time doing that. I'm also cognizant of the time. I've got 6 more minutes, and I don't want to go over 30 minutes. So I actually don't know how many slides I've got. 2 more slides. I'm on time. I think I just wrecked things. Figures, Okay, back on top of things. So, solutions, lessons from one aged autistic. That's me, not you. So you have to find your own way, but these are some ideas. Find your intrinsic interests and motivations and nurture them. One of my intrinsic interests is sound. I gave up music when I was in my 20s. I couldn't do anything with it. Now, in my 50s, now I'm 60, I'm playing the guitar and making music and doing stuff every day that I like. I'm really have an intrinsic interest in that. I'm not very good at it, but I've made a way to actually get paid to do it. I get paid for teaching creative arts and music. I do research on this stuff. I found a way for my intrinsic interest, which is mucking around with sounds, to work for me. Identify the gaps that limit meaningful engagement with the world. What stops you from getting out and dealing with the world the way you want? And it may be because you don't have a job and therefore you're poor, or you didn't learn how to drive because you were scared of something about that. What are the gaps that limit your engagement, and how do you address them in the best way you can? I don't drive. I have a license. I drive 2-3 times a year. I'm an okay driver, but I don't want to have a car in my life. So I live in an area where I can walk everywhere. Very important for me to walk everywhere. That's a way I can engage in the world around me. So actually I have to live downtown. So address them with the goals of supporting your intrinsic interests and motivation. Find out what your gaps are, find out how you want to address them, make sure there's needs for your intrinsic interests and motivations. And understand that you need a dual relationship with yourself. That's what I said about you may have to get a job and wear a suit and fit in with all the people and chat with them the best you can to allow you to be the person you need to be. So how do you keep this dual relationship between my public self and my real intrinsic autistic self? Here I'm doing goofy things for a photograph for the university. The university finds me a useful and meaningful person to have around because I get stuff done. Therefore, they let me do some really crazy and goofy stuff that I want to do, but always in balance. I always have to keep an eye on who is going to give me the freedom to do what I want or who can take it away. So, and to see engagement with the world as a necessary path for building autonomy from heteronomous conditioning. Heteronomous conditioning means when someone else decides for you. If anybody done ABA or CBT, that's a form of heteronomous conditioning, conditioning you through rewards and punishment to do what you're supposed to do. So how do you, again, balance that? I have to deal with the external world, so I want my autonomy, but I have to put up with a little bit of heteronomous conditioning in order to get it done. And for me, I never had CBT or any sort of therapy, but the social worker that I work with said that all of my education was me doing self-therapy the way I wanted, an autonomous self-therapy, so that I didn't have somebody else doing it. Another thing, this is crucially important, almost my final thought, if you can't laugh at yourself, how can you expect others to laugh at you? Laughing and finding joy in life and finding things to be hilarious is an important thing. I'm usually too serious. I tell people I have no sense of humor, which is the funniest thing. Because I do. But I say I have no sense of humor. Then I've got this stupid picture of me with a robot on my head, and a robot that I built with all sorts of crazy stuff. find out what your sense of humor is, find out what you're comfortable being laughed at, and laugh at yourself. When I say I find myself hilarious, it doesn't think that I think other people find me funny. I find me funny. I find me an interesting person to be around. I don't know why other people don't want to be around me very much. I'm exhausting and I talk too much, but I have a sense of joy in myself and what I'm able to accomplish. And it took decades to get it, but that's been something I want. I guess my final thought, this is me with a wig on, pretending that I'm a rock star. Keep your eye on the prize. And that prize is autonomy. Autistics want to have their own control of their own lives. How do you work with that? Fight the pressure to conform, because you can only be you. You can't be anyone else. You'd fail at it. You've only got one option. Maybe some neurotypicals can be somebody else, but you can't. So stop trying to be someone else. I can perform an adult academic male, but I'm still going to end up being me as soon as I take my suit jacket off. Give in as much as necessary, because you have to give in order to get your autonomy. It's always going to be a balance back and forth. Find people who can help you be you and do things with those people. I don't have many friends, but I have a massive social network. And I like these people. I don't meet them. I don't hang out with them. I don't drink beer with them. I don't socialize with them. But I interact with lots of people through the things I'm interested in. Don't let the system wear you down. Don't contract inwards. Don't just shut out the whole world. If the world's making you feel like that, take some time, figure out, get your equilibrium back, and then step back out into the world. That's been the biggest thing I ever did, was to realize that I just couldn't collapse in on myself like I wanted to at 17 years old and just block off the rest of the world. I stepped out and I engaged. And it's brutal, it's painful, but it works. Because if I'm contracting inwards, somebody else will start making decisions for me. Keep one foot in front of the other. Yep. Just keep trying new things. Again, it took me until I was 43 to get a job. It's this job. I love it. It's great. It was worth it. It took me a long time to get there. Never gave up. Your path is yours to find for yourself. You can't follow other people's path. Other people can't tell you what to do. You can listen to them. You can practice them what the stuff they're suggesting. There's so much I can learn from other people, but I still end up on my own path. So I said, be the best autistic you can be, because there is no other option. You've got you, and that's the most important thing. And you've got a lot to contribute if you can figure out what's good for you and how you can help other people. And after social interaction, play your ukulele. Play whatever it is you need to play. Play Minecraft. Those are the two things I play with. Have a sense of humor. Forgive everyone, including yourself. Let go of your anger and rage and outrage at how stupid everybody else is, because it's never going to go away. You'll have your anger and outrage later. But let it go for a time being. And find lots of places to take quiet rests that are comfortable, where other people can't bother you. And I think that's it. So I'm going to click finish, and I'm going to now spend the next 2 hours relaxing from this experience so that I can recover and then get on with the rest of my time. Thank you for listening. Nice to meet you this way, and good luck, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.
Connect with Jason. Questions for Jason can be sent via events@autismcanada.org.
Communiquer avec Jason. Les questions pour Jason peuvent être envoyées via events@autismcanada.org.